tell us a little bit about you before we start, so we get the opportunity to get to know you.
How long do we have?
Like 20 minutes?
20, perfect, okay.
But we have other questions.
All right. So my name is Simona Spellman, and what's really amazing about this journey is that I have really gotten to know Chano. And what's fantastic is that we have so many things in common. So I'll probably start with a couple of those things. So I was born in Italy. I spent a ton of time in Europe because my parents and my entire family is still there. And I have 2 daughters. One of them graduated last year from Northeastern as an industrial engineer. And guess what? Are you guys ready? We were both at the same graduation because his son graduated from Northeastern as well. And so it was pretty amazing. And then I think what I'll share is that I have the privilege of leading the human capital practice for Deloitte. But what's incredible, and given the theme that we're talking about this week, this year with the trends, is that I really do bring an outside-in view to human capital because I did not grow up in human capital. So my background, I started as a COBOL programmer way back when. I will not tell you when, but I guess I just gave it away because COBOL is pretty, pretty out there. But and so being in this role, I've been in this role now for 10 months, and that outside-in view has really helped a tremendous amount. So excited to be here.
Amazing. It's great having you here. By the way, we have many more things in common. Simone is from Sicily. She's less emotional than me, but I'm from Spain. We're from... And I would bet with both swung in the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Hopefully that's true. All right. So let's go a little bit to content. I mean, you clearly produce a really long, longitudinal study on global talent topics, the global human capital trends,
yes.
right? I read it, and an avid reader, and I'm sure many of the people here in the audience. So give us a little bit of background on how these have evolved over time and about that report.
Well, first of all, show of hands, has anybody read it in the audience? And I was going to say, my team better raise their hand. So this is a mouthful. Try to say this 5 times in a row. Thriving beyond boundaries, human performance in a boundaryless world. So for this year's report, we surveyed over 14,000 people across 95 countries and representing every region and industry, from individual contributors to board-level executives. And when we started this report in 2011, our mission was to sense and capture the leading trends in the space to help organizations understand the evolving world of work, workforce, and workplace. And over the years, that mission has really remained true. But I would say that in this past couple of years, we see a few major shifts. And yes, they're called human capital trends, but I think the first and perhaps the most important is that we're moving away from thinking that these leading trends are just HR issues. I have to do that. I have to go to the next one. Our HR issues, they're really business and C-suite issues. And what's really important is that last week I met with our global CEO, and he actually said to me, can we spend some more time with you? Because what I'm seeing and the conversations that are happening in these boardrooms are really all the topics that are around what is happening to the human in this new wave of work. So the second shift that we're talking about is about the rise of the worker and worker agency. So this year, we did a separate survey. We did worker and executive surveys to understand the perceptions and if they varied. And you're not going to be shocked, but there was some disconnect. And so we dug into that a little bit. And third, looking at our trends over time, we see this shift from an organization-centric view to an ecosystem-centric view. And it's all about the workers, all the workers, right? It's gig workers, it's contractors, it's all of the things that touch an organization. And then I think what's most important, I think what I'm most excited about is that this year we introduced the concept of human sustainability. It's creating value for people and organization touches. It's not just well-being, but things like equity and opportunities to learn new skills. So Years ago, we talked about the power of the organization, and now we've been writing about the boundaryless HR. Again, we'll get into a little bit more of that.
Wow, that's
It's a lot. It's a mouthful, I know.
that's a lot of content, but super, super interesting one. Boundaryless HR. I've been practicing that one though. It
That's
doesn't come
really
across
hard.
like,
It's
you know,
really
it's like, wow,
hard
that's
to
so cool. Boundaryless HR. You know, I think I'm gonna borrow it when it gets. It sounds
You
great.
better borrow it. That's why we wrote the trends.
So tell us a little bit about that term and how is AI is at the center of it.
So again, boundaryless HR, you will hear me say that, and I will butcher the word a few times. It's hard to say over and over again. But it tackles the shifts that make human performance a shared accountability for all. It's pretty simple, right? We're seeing HR move from being a specialized, siloed function to really co-creating and integrating across all functions, right? And so today's business problems, they're increasingly complex. And what they're doing is they're demanding multiple disciplines to come together. Now, I'm going to share a stat with you, but do not throw shoes at me because I'm not sure you're going to like this stat. But only in our study, only 15% of executives strongly agree that their organization values the work performed by HR. It's staggering, right?
It can get better.
It can get better, but and it can get better. And the way that we're going to be able to move that dial is through boundaryless HR. So there is hope for us yet.
I need to know how to explain that when I go.
Yeah.
The way you can improve is boundaryless HR.
Well, it is. Let me
Let's talk about that another day.
We'll talk about that. But here it is. When you think about it, all of HR today is built around the notion of jobs, right? Rather than skills, and it's employees rather than workers, right? AI can now identify skills of workers inside or outside of the organization and flexibly deploy them to the evolving working needs. We see tremendous impact and human and business impact. And things like empowering the identity of projects and interests through talent marketplace, like the stuff that Eightfold is doing, that can unlock tens of thousands of hours of untapped productivity by removing the boundaries of typical jobs, right? So it's a fascinating time with the technology that you all have provided us. Again, unlike Mandel, this is not an infomercial, but it's pretty amazing.
Thank you so much. Well, it's really about a talent center advantage today. How does Gen AI impact the life of an employee life cycle? And what does it mean for the function of HR, which is a question many in the audience are wondering themselves.
I think some of you can help me answer this one, right? But this is going to have a big impact, obviously, on the work that HR does across the employee life cycle, right? First and foremost, you've got Gen AI can help automate some of the HR work that professionals do right now. Therefore, you're improving efficiency and cost. You're answering questions with QA chatbots. You're automatically generating reports. You're processing HR transactions that are triggered by data, right? And so that's obviously a big one. Secondly, you're improving human outcomes, and that includes effectiveness. It includes work outcomes and workforce experience. So Gen AI can automatically call up information for call center workers. It can generate first drafts of job descriptions, policies, training for professionals. So there's a lot that can happen there. And then third, AI performs activities humans are unable to perform, due to scale or the amount of time that is required to do those things, right? So, think about it. With Copilot, the top 100 prospects for a job can be identified and sent hyper-personalized invitations to apply. I mean, that's a huge win, right there. It can offer learning based on individuals' unique preferences and pace. Right? And so finally, the other thing that it can do is that you can develop new skills to really advance AI solutions. So with all of the potential and capacity there, this AI-enabled technology has created, it's just a super exciting time for HR professionals. I will share that, I guess it was over a month ago now, I sat with MBAI, so MBA students from Kellogg. So it's MBA AI is the new term. And they were sharing with me, just this whole notion that don't be scared of it. You just got to practice what it means to your everyday work. And they gave me the example of, it's a vending machine. The only thing that you can get out of that vending machine is what the human puts into it, right? And so it was just like an aha moment for me. So thinking about it in that lens was something that kind of resonated. And let me tell you, our future is bright because these students blew my mind.
Yeah, they're really super well prepared, and they're not afraid to try out anything, which is, will make them successful. Let's talk a little bit more about the trends on this year's report, right? I mean, clearly you commented on boundaryless HR, boundaryless HR.
Say it
There's
5 times.
boundaryless HR. There are clearly more. For those in your team that are here and haven't read the report, what do they need to know the most?
I should make them come up here and tell you. So I think this one is my favorite, right? Because not my favorite. It's actually a little bit scary, but a focus on the human factor is key to really making progress here. And it's not just about knowing what we have to do. It's really about doing something about it. So we found in our research that leaders know that these trends are important, and in fact, 74% of them said as much. But here's the other statistics. Only 10% are actually doing something about it and doing great things. Think about that. That's, mind-blowing. So those who can bridge this gap from knowing to doing on this year's trends are more likely to produce better business and human outcomes. It's incredible. And when I talk about human outcomes, I'm referring to human sustainability. And what human sustainability means, it's doing well by workers and the world. And I keep talking about that in every single ExCo meeting that I'm in at Deloitte. Human sustainability has to be at the center of everything, right? It's the ability for an organization to create value for people as human beings, not just as workers. What's important is that human outcomes, when you are done doing, whatever you are transforming, that you leave your humans with greater health and well-being, stronger skills, employability, good jobs. All of those things are really important, and you can't lose sight of that. And so the bottom line is human and business outcomes together drive performance. So I'll give you a very simple example. Think about if you are improving worker psychological safety, what that could do to improving innovation. Think about that. Psychological safety, people feel that they could really explore and do what they want. Think about what that would mean to your innovation for whatever you're trying to do in your business. It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing, the way of thinking about it. What do you think it is standing in the way to basically understand better this human performance?
Listen, my daughter thinks I'm a dinosaur. So what's standing in our way is using what we call old proxies of measurement. Old thinking is getting in the way of unlocking human performance. So the proxies of the past allowed organizations to measure progress against traditional boundaries of work. And think about it, it was traditional boundaries in a much simpler world. But work is now increasingly boundaryless, right? So, for example, the workplace is no longer a specific place, and many workers are no longer traditional employees. We think of and measure how organizations should operate as a monolithic, one-size-fits-all culture, when most organizations are made up of an abundance of microcultures. Again, really important when we start thinking about it that way. We use employee engagement to evaluate relationships, but what we should really be measuring is trust. We use the proxy of productivity to measure worker activity without fully understanding what a desired human or business outcome is. Think about that, right? We measure hours worked, calls completed, wedges produced, but all of those metrics were part of an industrial revolution. Right? So we're in a different world, and we have to acknowledge that our work is far more complex and human-focused than ever before. So think about the manufacturing floor. Machines now automate, and there was some debate when we talked about this, machines now automate what could perhaps be conceived as easy, and it's leaving the more complex work for people, right? So today we have demand for those sophisticated skills that aren't easily observed by those traditional productivity measures. So, that's kind of really where we are, and,
So if we can't use some of these old practices, what do we do instead? I mean, you talk about trust, and I know Michael Bush will talk about it significantly and from great places to work, but what do we do?
So this is a question that's been asked of us by many, many leaders around the world who recognize this need for new metrics. And interestingly enough, 17% of respondents say that their organizations are very effective at evaluating the value created by workers and how to unleash that value. Only 17%. I mean, that's amazing. But here is the good news. The good news is that in an era of human-centered work, new sources of data and intelligence and technologies like Eightfold's talent intelligence can help organizations shift from measuring things like productivity to measuring human performance. So there's a lot that has transpired since the Industrial Revolution, and we'll get there. It'll be something that that we'll catch up to pretty soon.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about one topic that certainly is very core to the audience here, which is skills, right? And clearly we're seeing more organizations looking at skills for making decisions around work and workers. I think you guys call it the skills-based organization, if I'm not wrong. And across certain industries, there is definitely a deficit on skills. How these skills will create those insights for us going forward?
So are skills important to everyone in the audience? Yeah, maybe. So first, organizations are needing to get creative about sourcing for skills rather than just considering job experience in a tight labor market where there are skills deficits. So this is a great example of how AI can drive talent intelligence. By using AI to understand the capabilities workers have that are correlated to their success, using affirmative filters, screen in based on skills and adjacent skills. Even if these workers have never had a similar job before, organizations can open up doors of opportunity and movement to millions who previously been shut out. So there's tons of examples out there, and when you're even thinking about looking at adjacent and near skills, like that can also help. So when there's an example of a telecommunications company that needed machine learning skills, can you guys guess what happened when they went out into the interwebs and asked about who is available that has machine learning skills? They probably didn't get many hits. So that telecommunications company, it didn't search for those who held those machine learning skills. What it did is, they looked for workers that they analyzed their profiles of thousands of workers who identified themselves as machine learning experts to understand the aggregation of skills and experience and pathways that these workers took to develop these skills. Right, so what is that pattern? They created an algorithm to search and hire for those, increasing the talent pool by at least 3 times. And once you start kind of thinking that creatively, it really does move the dial in trying to find those types of.
Yeah. I think, Simona, you will agree with me that a lot will depend on the quality and of that skills data that we're getting,
yeah.
Right? So have you seen anything on the research that really challenges some of these outcomes?
Yeah. And I think Ashu mentioned this at the end of what his presentation was. An important piece of this is that we need to make skills data transparent. And so, you've got to really look at and have good verified skills data. The issue is that how we collect that data, how we share it transparently, and how we use it responsibly creates benefits for both the organization and the worker. With AI, data transparency and verification are advancing, especially the notion of detecting skills in the flow of work, right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. We wrote the transparency paradox, and it's all about how transparency can help. But guess what? Transparency can also hinder. Right? So workforce trust in a world where nearly everything can now be transparent is really important. And our research reveals, this is important, our research reveals that workers are open to sharing their data, but many want to do so only if their employer clearly tells them how their data is collected and used, and then the benefits that come with it, like new opportunities for growth, or fairer pay, or promotion, decisions. So to maintain this trust, organizations really do need to harness the power of the new sources of data and AI responsibly, including, again, was mentioned earlier, including AI for bias, right? That has to be part of the conversation. So
makes a lot of sense. We're almost getting
Yeah.
to the hour, but what do you see organizations doing for basically applying workers to learn about generative AI?
So I will cut. Where are we? We're on the. So I will cut to the chase a little bit here. There's something you should go and read about it in the trends called imagination deficit, and that's the gap between increasing technology capability and human creativity and applying it. I'll say it again. Imagination deficit is that gap between increasing technological capability and human creativity and applying it, right? And the only way to kind of deal with that gap is to really focus on creating digital playgrounds, right? Creating playgrounds where people have the ability to practice, to get confidence, to really focus on imagination, curiosity, empathy, right? Again, imagination, curiosity, empathy. Those are the skills that are going to be required. And if you can create those digital playgrounds for people, you're really going to get ahead of all of this.
Imagination, curiosity, empathy. It seems to be makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, amazing. Any final thoughts to share?
Yeah, no matter where you sit in the organization, think about the power you have to close that knowing and doing gap, right? You have the power to do that. Take action to bring human outcomes and business outcomes together to drive that human performance. If you can help solve this, your organization can and will create value for all of the people that it touches, and think about how powerful that would be for all of us.